51 of the Texas Government Code, I call to order a regular voting meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Austin Independent School District for Thursday, November 17, 2022 at 6:01 p.m. A quorum of the board is physically present at the ISD Central Office to conduct this meeting. Board meetings are open to the public based on space availability to ensure social distancing and the health and safety of our community and staff. This meeting is streaming live on ISD TV and Apple TV. It's also being broadcast on cable channel 22 through Spectrum, Astound Broadband, and on channel 99 through AT&T UVerse. Closed captioning in English is available on these platforms for individuals who are deaf or hard of hearing. And to our audience tuning in remotely and here in person, welcome and thank you all for joining us. We will move to the approval of the agenda. Trustee Ashe, do you have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Is there a second? Having a motion by Trustee Ashe and a second by Trustee Zapata to approve the agenda, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. Trustee Ashe, will you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the pledge to the Texas flag?
Didn't know I was doing this. It's both because it's a voting meeting, isn't it? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Juro lealtad a la bandera de los Estados Unidos de América y a la república que representa una nación bajo Dios, indivisible, con libertad y justicia para todos. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Honro a la bandera de Texas. Te juro lealtad, Texas. Un estado bajo Dios, único y indivisible.
Thank you. Our next item is the President's Report. The month of November is National Native American Heritage Month. And this evening, we want to take a moment to elevate and honor the histories and traditions of our Native and Indigenous communities. In recognition of the many sacrifices of Native and Indigenous people throughout our nation's history, we would like to first acknowledge the original stewards of the land we currently occupy. Recognizing that we live and learn on the shared lands and waters of the Comanche and Tonkawa, we express our respect for the three federally recognized nations within the state of Texas, the Alabama Coushatta, the Kickapoo Traditional Tribe of Texas, and the Isleta del Sur Pueblo, as well as other indigenous peoples and nations such as the Karankawa, Caddo, Mescalero Apache, Lipan Apache, Comecrudo, Wichita, Guatliticuan, and Neches, who have historic ties to these homelands. We also acknowledge the multiple ways the state of Texas and the residents of this land have benefited from the forced and systemic removal of Native and Indigenous peoples from Texas. We will continue to commit to learning with and from Native and Indigenous students and families in order to cultivate a deeper understanding of the histories and lived experiences of the Native and Indigenous communities here in Central Texas and abroad. And while AISD reflects on how we can better serve our students with programs, literature, and academic support, we also call on the state to prioritize funding and curriculum for Native American and Indigenous students. The district also recently celebrated Veterans Day on November 11th. The district created a new ceremony this year to honor our students and staff who have served and also honor two recent AISD students. William Neely served in the Army and Texas Army National Guard during the war in Afghanistan. He served 15 years and was medically retired on the 6th day of November 2018, and Mr. Neely attended Navarro Early College High School, formerly Lanier High School. And Ricky Sauls served in the United States Marine Corps from 1973 to 1978. He was generally discharged under honorable conditions. Mr. Sauls attended Austin High School, and both of these students served prior to their high school graduation, and we were honored to be able to award them their diplomas and name them as high school graduates last week. And I want to thank Dr. Mays and Trustee Anderson and myself were there. The district looks forward to continuing this event going forward and encourages anyone who served in the armed services and enrolled prior to graduation to check in with their local high school to learn more about the options available to them to still graduate and receive their diploma as allowed under state law. And I think we'll be continuing that as a tradition for the district. The next item is this previous Tuesday, the current AISD Board of Trustees met with the 4 newly elected members who will be joining the board December 1st to begin discussing the process of choosing a new interim superintendent to serve Austin ISD until a permanent hire is made. The Austin ISD Board of Trustees intends to have an interim superintendent in place by December 15th, 2022. An application for an interim superintendent has been opened on our district website at austinisd.org/board/superintendent-search. We're inviting applicants, both internal and external, to Austin ISD, and we are seeking applicants to serve solely in the role of interim, not people who wish to fill the permanent superintendent role, and we welcome everyone to apply. On December 1st, the new board will continue the discussion on the process for a permanent superintendent and begin the process by discussing the hiring of a search firm. And our mutual goal is to identify a new superintendent who can begin working for Austin ISD and our community by July 1, 2023. So again, I want to thank our incoming trustees for coming and sharing their thoughts, and for our current board to work together and model the kind of transition that we hope will continue in the future. Yes, Trustee Singh.
I just wanted to clarify one thing, is that the interim superintendent would be named by December 15th, but not necessarily in place by then. Is that, I just wanted to clarify. President Rodriguez, correct? Okay,
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
Last but not least, I just wanted to read a message that we have for Thanksgiving for all of our AISD family. And so I think, Jacob, did we send this out yet? We have not sent it out. So this message will be sent out to all of our community. Dear Austin ISD family, Thanksgiving is one of our favorite holidays because it puts gratitude at the center of the celebration. And we'd like to thank each of you at Austin ISD, teachers and staff, for everything you do to prepare each student with the knowledge and skills they need to thrive each and every day. And as you gather with your family, we hope you have time to enjoy the days off and reflect on how far we have come through the past year, through the past few years. We're grateful for your public service and everything you do for our students. Happy Thanksgiving. Your AISD Board of Trustees. Estimada familia de Austin ISD, Acción de Gracias es una de nuestras festividades favoritas porque hace de la gratitud el centro de la celebración. Queremos agradecer a cada uno de ustedes en Austin ISD, maestros y personal, por todo lo que hacen para preparar a cada estudiante con el conocimiento y las destrezas que necesitan para progresar todos y cada uno de los días. Esperamos que el reunirse con su familia tengan tiempo de disfrutar los días de descanso y de reflexionar hasta donde hemos llegado de este año pasado, de estos años pasados. Estamos agradecidos por su servicio público y por todo lo que hacen por nuestros estudiantes. Feliz Día de Acción de Gracias, su mesa directiva de Austin ISD. At this time, we'd like to have trustees provide committee reports, but I should say, trustees, I don't know if any of y'all have any other additional comments or thoughts around the president's report. Okay, then we'll move to the committee reports. Trustee Ashe, can you share the policy report and the report for the Austin Education Fund?
I certainly can. I will begin with the Policy Committee, which convened at 10:13 on Monday, November the 7th, with Trustees Ashe, Foster, and Boswell, as well as from administration were Dr. Jacob Reach, Edna Butts, and Brandy Hozick. And I did it right, Ms. Hozick, I was working on that. The committee spent the entire 2 hours speaking of one policy. We were working very diligently to make I'm going to try to make this sound correct. So Trustees Foster and Boswell, if I stumble or if you have things you would like to add, I invite that. We are wanting to make it a more effective policy that reflects what we have been doing and provides more clarity around this policy. We were revising outdated provisions and considering how our consultation agent is selected. The committee anticipates that the proposed revisions will be presented to the board at its January voting meeting, with the idea that we wanted to make sure that the new board and the newly elected trustees would have the opportunity to read this and ask any questions that they may have in January. And obviously, Trustees Foster and Boswell would be able to answer any of those questions. The committee adjourned at 12:09, and the next meeting will likely be in January after at least one new member is appointed to the committee once newly elected board officers are decided upon. And the second would be the Ed Austin Committee, the Ed Austin Board. And the next board meeting, or the next meeting itself, will actually not take place until December the 5th, and it will include approval of the 2023 Ed Fund budget, new board members and officers, and recognition for departing board members, including, is Leticia ruling? I don't see Michelle here. It was written as myself, so I needed to double check and see who that was. Vesnia Svenlin, James Norty, and Ron Reed. And I'd like to express, we would like to express the gratitude to the dedicated volunteers and generous donors who have engaged with the Ed Fund and are champions for Austin ISD students, staff, and families. Thank you so much for the time, and a personal point of privilege. It's been my honor to serve on this board that does so much for Austin ISD to support the work and enable us to be able to do even more than what we do. I particularly appreciate the teacher grant program. That is the major focus of their work. So that concludes my report.
Thank you, Trustee Ashe, for serving as the board's representative on the Austin Ed Fund. Trustee Boswell, can you share an intergovernmental report?
Yes, thank you. The Board Intergovernmental Relations Committee convened a meeting at 10:12 a.m. on Monday, November 14th. Trustees Boswell, Zapata, and Singh were present. Jacob Reach, Edna Butts, and Stephanie McGraw from administration were also present. We discussed the Advocacy Advisory Committee. People who watch our board meetings closely will know that we approved that at our last meeting in October, and we discussed the process for making appointments to that recently approved committee. The committee will recommend a revision to the bylaws to change the number of students on the committee from 9 to a member from each high school. The revision will be presented to the board at the December voting meeting. Those interested in applying to serve on the committee can find more information on the district's website under Our District, and then on that menu go to Advisory Committees, and then you'll find more information. The standard application is in English and Spanish. To view the categories of membership for this particular committee, click on Advocacy Advisory Committee. The committee will hold its first meeting on February 1st from 5 to 7 p.m. The second meeting will be at the Capitol on March 29th, we think during the middle of the day around lunchtime. Members of the committee will be asked to share their areas of interest, as well as any affiliations with education-related associations and people in other school districts. The committee also discussed holding a community-wide post-session briefing after the legislative session for the committee and anyone else who is interested. We also discussed a luncheon with our Travis County delegation and their education and budget staff to share our legislative priorities and hear from them their views on the upcoming session. And we adjourned the meeting at 11:22 a.m. And we need a number of people for the Advocacy Advisory Committee, so anyone who's interested, please spread the word, and we encourage people to apply. And we'll be making selections soon after the new board members are seated. Thank you.
Thank you. Trustees, are there any other committee or training reports to share tonight? If not, thank you all very much. The next item is under the superintendent's report. Dr. Mace?
Thank you, President Rodriguez. If I could get Dr. Reach to pull it up for me. All right. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, got a little delay. Last week, Austin voters passed the largest school bond package ever approved in Central Texas, and we are incredibly grateful to the people of Austin for funding this much-needed investment in our schools. This $2.44 billion bond will enable the district to provide the security, facilities, and modern technology that all of our students and teachers deserve. The projects funded with these bond dollars will save the district millions of dollars a year in maintenance and utility costs long-term, money that can be used to meet our critical needs, such as increasing teacher salaries. Our appreciation to the Bond Steering Committee, the Long Range Planning Committee, and all of our staff and volunteers. Again, we appreciate you all. You all made it happen. Next slide, please. On Wednesday, November 9th, we invited all of the 2022 Teachers of the Year to a special breakfast at the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center. Teachers enjoyed an amazing breakfast and a special morning planned just for them. We had a great turnout, and it was a lot of fun. And again, thank you to all of our Teachers of the Year who serve as leaders and ambassadors for their schools and our district. It was really fun to just sit there and watch everybody just enjoy being out there and having a nice breakfast and being spoiled. The thing that we didn't mention was that everybody walked off with those, what are those nice little jewelry pieces?
Kendra Scott.
There you go, Kendra Scott jewelry. And so I think that was their favorite part. So we enjoyed spoiling the teachers. So next slide, please. Back in October, I challenged our school community to read 1 million minutes this school year. I'm so proud to say that in just about a month, our students have not only completed 1 million minutes, but are well on their way to 2 million. Our elementary schoolers alone have logged over 1 million minutes so far, and I'm so proud of our students and can't wait to see how much they read this year. And I know that my own contributed to this because I've been able to read both Austin and Alex to contribute to these minutes. And it was especially special for me to have my sons tell me about me challenging them to read the minutes. So very happy about this. Let's keep going on that effort. Next slide, please. And so this was a joy, you all. Last Friday, I'm sorry, this is our golden race for Miss Colley. So this lady actually organizes all of the rave awards, and so we kind of snuck this on her. And so normally she's the one that sets up the rave awards, and she's right there next to me recognizing these individuals throughout the district as we celebrate whatever they've done to support AISD. But yeah, I got a chance to sneak up and surprise her with this one. So while she thought we were going to be recognizing someone else, we actually got a chance to recognize Darla for all of the great work that she does here. I said every school district needs a Darla. Because she especially focuses on bringing joy to everyone within this organization, and is just selfless and never wants to be recognized. But we caught her, and we got a chance to recognize her with a rave award. Next slide, please. And so last Friday, we held a ceremony to recognize Veterans Day and to honor our Austin ISD veterans. And we are so proud of the many men and women from our community who have served in our armed forces. Many of them haven't always been able to cross the stage to receive their diplomas because they answered the call of duty. We were pleased to award the diplomas to Sergeant Neely, who served in the U.S. Army, and Lance Corporal Sauls, who served in the U.S. Marines, and we want to thank them for their service. Next slide, please. Congratulations are in order for some hard-working Bowie High School students. Make sure to tune in to the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade next week to see Bowie High School's Silver Stars dance team officers perform. Next slide, please. Also from Bowie, the Dispatch newspaper was awarded its 5th consecutive Pacemaker Award for Scholastic Journalism Excellence from the National Student Press Association. In addition to that award, Bowie students had a record 9 entries that placed in the top 10 of their respective categories. So we're proud of Bowie High School and all of their accomplishments. Next slide, please. We are so proud to recognize Travis ECHS Hospitality and Tourism Management students who have won a 2022 Hilton Global Foundation grant. The grant totals $150,000. I did not make that up. $150,000 to help these students gain valuable work experience, including tuition-free hospitality degree program. So thank you to the leadership there, and thank you to those students for helping to get this grant awarded. Next up, I want to recognize Crockett Cougar Band student Matthew Chavez for winning first chair alto saxophone in the 2023 Texas All-State Jazz Ensemble. Congratulations, Matthew, for placing first in the state of Texas. Yeah. Next slide, please. U.S. Rice recently created a 4-member chef advisory board to provide feedback on school food service initiatives and present opportunities for Rice within K-12 operations. And we're proud to say that our own Diane Gordek, executive chef in Austin ISD Nutrition and Food Services, has been appointed to this board. She will be working to help establish relationships, connect with new school districts, and collaborate on new recipes for our students. So kudos to the team. Next slide, please. Congratulations to the Austin ISD Sustainability Department for receiving the Innovative Solutions Award from Clean Air Force of Central Texas for participating in the Be Air Smart Sensor Program. Our sustainability team is always looking out for the next big thing to make sure our schools are healthy, like this program, which will help us better monitor air quality with a dozen sensors that have been added within our schools. Last slide, please. All right, Akins High School, last but not least, a shout out to the advanced art students at Akins ECHS who were participating in the 7th workshop of the Mexic-Arte's Education Outreach Program, MARTE. The workshop is led by a local muralist, Ruben Esquivel, also known as the East End Eclectic, who is helping the students design a mural to reflect what culture means to Akins High School community. The students unveiled their new mural last Thursday, and you can see from the pictures, I don't know that that does it any justice, so for our board members and those of you in the audience, you might just want to take a visit to be able to enjoy the art. And that concludes my report, Trustee President Rodriguez. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. Any questions? Trustee Zapata.
If I may, I'd like to lift up the success of the bond. That was a lot of work, and I want to do a big shout out for our community engagement staff. They did over 300 community events to engage the community so everyone understands why it's important to support this bond. You know, that it was time to make that kind of investment. And so that was a lot of work. Staff, I don't think, slept for those 2 weeks, and I was with them. And so it was a lot of fun being out in the community. And I just think that's a huge success. 2.44 billion. Everybody, did y'all hear the billion part? That's a lot of money. And so finally, our district is going to be able to invest in many great ways to our campuses. So thank you, everyone, and our community engagement staff, hats off to you. And just so everyone knows that our staff here go above and beyond to really do its best to work with community, and that's a culture we are creating, and want to know that your voice is always going to be important to us, your input. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Zapata. Trustees, any other comments? If not, we're going to move, thank you, Dr. Mays. We're going to move to the public testimony for items on the consent agenda. Members of the public wishing to participate in the public testimony portion of our meeting call the dedicated AISD phone line in advance of the meeting to sign up to speak in person or to audio record their remarks. And tonight, we do not have anyone who has signed up for public testimony. So as a reminder, Please feel free to share any general comments or questions on non-voting items with the board by email at trustees@austinisd.org. Our next item is a scorecard discussion and review of items 4.1 and 4.2, the 6th to 8th grade beginning of year map reading and math. Dr. Mace.
Thank you, President Rodriguez and the board. We do have our interim chief of schools, Mr. Gilbert Higgs, interim chief of academics, Ms. Heather Petrozzini, and our associate of our academics, Ms. Dr. Diaz, presenting to us this morning. What I would emphasize again to everybody is this is the beginning of the year data. I want to emphasize again, this is the beginning of the year data, probably a week into the school year when teachers are only assessing to get a baseline. I would like to say that again, as we work throughout this year, the data that they gather here serves as a roadmap for the growth that we want to ensure that all of our students have. And so they'll be sharing with you all where our students landed with their baseline data and how we're moving forward. Go ahead.
Good evening, trustees. Dr. Mays, thank you for having us. Happy Thanksgiving. Tonight we're going to be reviewing scorecard goal 4 and the progress measures associated with it, 4.1 through 4.4, all around our student achievement for our students who are experiencing poverty and are African American or Hispanic. Next slide, please. So I just want to bring this back to the forefront. This data was reviewed with you in June. This highlights all 5 of the goals I just mentioned, all centered around goal 4, where we met 2 of the 5 targets that are posted, and we reviewed earlier that we had missed 3 of the targets, not by huge percentages, but we knew we had some work to do going into this year. Next slide, please. So reading in grades 6 through 8 is combined in goal 4, reading and math for our economically disadvantaged students. And one thing we wanted to highlight here was the rate of rebound that our students in Austin ISD are experiencing. So the state was at 26 and rose to 33% during the 21-22 school year. That was a 7-point gain for the state. But in Austin ISD, we were lucky enough and planned out enough that we actually experienced a 10-point gain in student outcomes in reading and math. And so sort of in the beginning, we are outperforming the state with the rate of rebound. Next slide, please. So this week we've put everything on one slide for you so that you could see everything side by side, and we would be able to show you that the yellow band is the student group that we are focusing on. Our African American students experiencing poverty scored at a 16% in the beginning of the year assessment, which was in late August, and that's 14 points away from the target for the end of the year. Our Hispanic students experiencing poverty scored at 20%, which is 12% away from the target. You can see overall, we were at 49% as a district, with 24% of our students experiencing poverty meeting their achievement, as 62% of our non-economically disadvantaged students. However, on the right side of the screen, you'll see the rate of growth that our students are experiencing. So this compares beginning of last year to beginning of this year. And so you can see over that span of time, we'd be looking at last year's 6th and 7th graders who are now 7th and 8th graders, and the 5th graders who are now 6th graders. 44% of our African American students met their target. 45% of our African American students experiencing poverty met the target, compared to 42% of our non-economically disadvantaged students. And then in our Hispanic student group, 45% of the students met their growth target. 44% of our students who are Hispanic experiencing poverty met their target, and compared to 47%. Next slide, please. Similarly, in math, the targets were similar in that 9% of our African American students experiencing poverty met their achievement goal. That was the goal at the end of the year is 23%. So there was a 14% gap there, and then 13% of our economically disadvantaged Hispanic students met their achievement target. So missing by 12% there, but it's the beginning of the year data, and we know that there's a lot of room to grow. What really stands out to us, though, is, again, in math, we're seeing the same pattern that we showed you last week. We have students, almost 60% of our students are meeting their growth targets, and 60% in MAP growth is quite significant, that many students are meeting their targets. And if they meet their target, that also means they may have exceeded their target, and so there are some celebrations to have in that area. Next slide, please.
So again, we're going to look at growth, and the goal here is to sink the diamond or to drown the kite or whatever kind of metaphor that you want to use for it. But again, just like Heather talked about in the slide before, you can see that we are meeting our growth goals in math for grades 6, 7, and 8. But we have some work to do in grades 7 and 8 for reading, and this can be caused by a multitude of factors, but one of them is that math tends to be more linear, so it's easier to accelerate instruction in math. Since these kids are our pandemic kids, they may be missing some foundational skills such as comprehension, and it's a little harder to make up ground on those kind of skills. It may take longer for a kid to catch up in regards to reading than they can in math. And again, this is, to remind you all, it is beginning of the year baseline data. Next slide, please. So to remind you again that it's beginning of the year data, the first day of school was August the 15th, and we had an earlier testing window for MAP this year. We thought that giving it earlier would be more advantageous for our teachers and our students. But again, since they only had 10 days prior to instruction, and these are middle school kids who are they're on an alternating block, or they might only have seen their teachers 3 times a week, so they probably only met 6 times before they were given this assessment, just to reinforce that idea that this is prior to real instruction.
So regarding the professional learning communities, you'll remember last week we saw the same graphic, and I want to put it in perspective with regards to our middle school data as well. So PLCs, remember, are a culture that we want to put into place in our schools. They're not a thing. We often refer to PLCs as a meeting time, and that's kind of where we've gotten to, but really it's really the culture of the school and about how we're going to do collaboration within a school and within the school environment. So in an ideal world, you have 2 PLCs minimum a week in elementary schools, and then you have PLCs every day in middle schools. And you do 2 different things. In one of the PLCs, you'll be looking back, and in another PLC, you'll be looking forward. In the looking back PLC, which is the data PLC, you take all of the information that you have accumulated, the assessments, the student work, and everything that you've done, and you take that and you break it apart, and you see what it is, how students did, and what you need to do, and what you need to respond to with regards to the data. You are looking at refining instructional practices based on what you're seeing and identifying where the gaps are in instruction based on the data that you're bringing forward, anecdotal, quantitative, and qualitative data. And the other type of PLC, the looking forward PLC, you're doing the planning piece, and the major thing that you're doing there is deconstructing the TEKS or breaking them apart, the Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills. Remember, previously I've talked to you about the power of the verbs and the nouns that are in those standards and how the rigor of them is extremely important. And so it's important for the teachers to be able to take those nouns and those verbs and to understand the rigor and the level of rigor that we're expecting for the instruction to have with regards to them being able to do well on the assessments. Also, in the looking forward PLC, the teachers are working together, again, collaborating to ensure that they have strong instructional practices to ensure that they're able to meet those, the rigor of the nouns and the verbs and the student learning objectives. The process of PLCs allows for planning and implementation of a focused reteach as well. So when you look backwards and you see the assessment data that you need to look at in order to know where the gaps are, then in the planning forward piece, you think, well, yes, we're going to move on and we're going to compact the curriculum if students have already learned it, but we're also going to plan for our reteach and what we're going to need to do in order to ensure that we don't continue those gaps and perpetuate those gaps. So critical to the success of the reteach lessons is the teachers identifying how they can teach the lessons differently and not just do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. So looking back and looking forward. Next slide. We wanted to show you that with regards to the map data, this is an example of one of the kinds of reports that you get with map data and the quality of the information that you can receive from it, the plethora of information that you can receive. So this is a screenshot of one of the reports that you can receive. And these would be used in looking back PLCs. We find it particularly useful because it breaks the data down into a number of different ways. So if you look at that summary chart on the upper right-hand corner, the black and white chart, you'll see that you, obviously you know how many kids took the test, and then you look at their mean RIT score. The RIT score, if you remember from previous meetings, is a measure of the academic level of difficulty of the questions that students are receiving. But then it also provides some other information, such as the standard deviation and the averages, RIT scores across grade levels and across the district, and then it tells you the number of students that were at or above grade level, and so it just puts it all into one place. And then the colorful chart that you see underneath that provides you with additional information with regards to, on the left-hand side, the standards that are being assessed in the reporting categories, and you can see what those are. They align nicely with our Texas Essential Knowledge and Skills, and then across the top, you'll see that those are the categories of scores that students, the performance levels that students perform in, and anywhere from low to high with low average, average, and high average in between. And then when you look at the percentile ranks below them, our goal is to ensure that all students at 41% or above, that's the average percentile rank. If students score at 40% tile rank or below, then that means that they are in need of intensive intervention and reteach. So that's kind of how we look at that and then begin to make our groups accordingly. Next slide. Additionally, we wanted to give you an idea of some of the types of questions that you can get on the MAP assessment, the measures of academic progress. And I will tell you that this looks simple when you first look at it. This particular math question is a 6th grade map growth question. The area of a circle is 144 pi meters squared. Okay, so what is the diameter of the circle? And there's a lot of information that you have to know in order to solve that question. And so the rigor is there, and we have to teach the level of rigor of that question. It's not simply plugging something in and saying, oh, this must be it, because it's a lot more than that. So, but on the map growth also, with regards to the assistance and the accommodations that are built into map growth, it's really nice. When you look at the top, you'll see that those tools across, right underneath where it says map growth 6th through 8th grade, those are tools that they can use on the computer to help them with the test, to zoom in and zoom out. A highlighter is there. They can erase. There's a line reader, which I wasn't even aware was there. Then the notepad for them to be able to take notes and use a scratch paper. And then eliminating answer choices. You know that when we're taking a paper and pencil test, we oftentimes will scratch out and, well, that one can't be right. Well, they can do that on the electronic version of the test as well. And then there's a calculator that's available for them too. However, that's not available on the 6th grade STAR test, so we don't allow them to use that on the 6th grade MAP test as well. So it's not possible to just memorize a formula and perform well. However, we don't want them to memorize formulas, so we provide them with STAR math charts or charts that have the formulas on them, because the idea is to be able to manipulate the work in such a way that you're actually solving problems. So on map growth, if a student responds correctly to a question, the RIT score implies that the next question is going to be at a higher level of difficulty, and if they don't respond correctly, the next question will be adjusted so that they will stay in their zone of proximal development as they're taking the test. And then the next one is an example of a reading question, and
Mr.
I'm not going to go over it in as much detail, but I will
Mr.
say.
Hicks, what was the answer to that question?
Oh, what?
I was trying to figure it out.
Well, Trustee Rodriguez, I looked at the question earlier today.
Dr. Reach.
Oh, I had, well, okay, are we going to really do this? Okay. So, Dr. Reach?
You said C. Yes, it's C.
I think for the time on the board, we won't ask.
44 is the radius.
Okay.
We don't have enough time for you to show the work, but
Get rid of that, and then we get 12 and 3. Times 2, and then I'm going to.
thank you.
Okay.
And
The next one is
that's after summer break, right? Like one week into the school year, right after summer break. Good job.
The next one is a 7th grade reading question. And if you will just take a moment to just look at the poem that they're provided in 7th grade, and then they're going to need to be able to do some inferring with regards to that poem. Oh. So I think that is an interesting poem that is chosen for this particular test. And then you can see the questions that come with it. So the same support features are up there, but in this reading question, students are asked to use higher order thinking skills. They're going to have to infer the theme of the poem, and then they're going to have to identify the line in the poem that best supports that theme. On the 5 and the 10 on the right-hand side are associated with the lines in the poem so the kids can continue to count. It has nothing to do with the answer choices per se. It's a good example of the level of rigor at which the standards are assessed. And so it's important in a planning for PLC that teachers are exposed to this and they're able to prepare children for this level of rigor as they are delivering their lessons. The teachers have to understand really the level have a deep understanding of the standard and ensure that there's a first teach that matches that level of rigor. So we know that high expectations for student achievement can only be realized when we teach at that particular level and assessments are aligned to the level of complexity that are dictated by the standards. So with this understanding in mind and with our most recent round of achievement data, we'll definitely be making some adjustments to ensure that we continue to have improvement every single day for our students. So next.
So I have the last slide, and I'm going to focus in on the curricular side of things because you have seen the instruction and the assessment, because many of the changes we're making in regards to curriculum instruction and assessment are going to be K-12. But the curriculum audit and the curriculum rewrite are going to be huge to changing the way things are. We know that what moves kids forward is rigor, engaging lessons and curriculum that's relevant to them. And we also know that one of the things that will help move the kids forward is talking. And often we don't see the kids talking enough in our classrooms. So those opportunities to speak and to have rigorous and engaging lessons will be part of the rewrite. And so therefore, because a lot of this hinges on relationships, we know that. I had an opportunity to talk to Trustee Singh and Trustee Rodriguez about, we come up here and we know that these scores are not where they're supposed to be. So we have been really delving into research about what is it that could change these outcomes. And so we know that part of it is the expectation of the teacher on the child. And so therefore, we're going to involve our SEL and CP&I department and hopefully Dr. Holly and her team in how do we train teachers on setting high expectations for their students so all kids can. So part of that, it's a mind shift. It is about the relationship between the teacher, and the children. So also associated with that, we're bringing in Dr. Tatum to do some professional learning with our specialist, because he is an expert on teaching Black children how to read. And so we're going to take what we learned from that professional learning experience to inform how we rewrite the curriculum. And then really what's going to be another fundamental piece of this is the Long Range Planning Committee has done a whole lot of work on this stuff for a year. They've put a lot of time and effort into thinking about these scores are partially a product of systemic racism, right? And so how do we undo those structures that have been part of our school system for way too long? But what is awesome about what the Long Range Planning Committee has done is many of the goals and the strategies they put into play, thanks to Dr. Holly and her team, are really focused on systems and structures that need to be looked at and disrupted. So part of what I'm having my department do is we're going to create program improvement plans, and we're going to use the long-range planning goals and strategies and tie the things that we're doing into those goals and strategies. And so, again, many of the other things you've seen here, but these are recent things that we've been talking about just because of things we've learned from the long-range planning and from, being up here and speaking to you and really trying to figure out how do we fix this problem. Next slide.
Thank you very much, and we're here to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Trustees, now is the time for us to ask questions on the current vision, and our goal tonight is monitoring and ensuring our reality matches the vision presented. So when asking questions, we should focus on the data presented, asking questions about who, what, why, and how. So trustees, questions? Trustee Boswell.
Thank you, and thank you all for this presentation. I appreciate the information and the detail and examples and look ahead. So thank you. I have one question about how the growth is calculated for the beginning of the year. Easy to understand how beginning to middle and middle to end would be calculated. Is beginning of year growth referring back to last year's?
So if you'll remember last year when you were given the reporting out, there was not a BOI growth, and that's because our growth has to measure something that was already there. So last year, you got growth at middle of the year and end of the year. The growth that we showed tonight is beginning of year to last year's beginning of the year.
So this is students who were Austin ISD students at the end of last year who took the MAP test, and that's what we're measuring.
Yes, they finished the year in Austin ISD. They were here last year, is the best way to say it. They were here last year.
Okay, thank you. Just wanted clarity on that. And then just want to share, I think we're seeing what we're seeing in the data, the same patterns, and really know we've been asking, kind of what we know would move the needle and where the strategies come from. And Dr. Diaz, I really appreciate the insight into what the research is showing us and leaning into that. And I think as trustees, we're really happy to go there with you and do what we can to support that work. So really appreciate it, and I would appreciate a small group just so we can know a bit of what you know, just have a deeper understanding of kind of where you're going and what you're doing, so we can better support. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Trustee Wagner.
Well, I apologize for my tardiness and don't have any questions for you tonight, but I think I'm feeling a little reflective since this is my last full meeting as a trustee, and thinking back over the last 7 years in the way we talk about student outcomes and the way we talk about disaggregated data. I think this is the first conversation we've ever had about it where we've talked about the impact of systemic and generational racism on our students' outcomes today. And I just want to make note of the fact that even though we're not where we all want to be collectively, I see such a mindset shift in confronting the problem head-on and a willingness to be completely transparent about where we are and where we need to go. So thank you for the continued work, and thank you for the culture shift that we're starting to undergo as a district. It's really powerful, and I think it's the foundation that we need to really move things forward.
Oh, and Trustee Wagner, right before you got here, we were asked to answer the question of the radius of 144 pi m2. If you have a thought about it, we'd welcome the thought.
Can I copy your notes?
And Dr. Reach did it in his head.
Trustees, any other questions? I just want to add to that, thank you all for the very honest, direct conversations and the research that you've done. I think I really appreciate everything that you've shared around that, and how the teacher really makes a difference, and knowing that and how we can be supportive is going to be really important to our success. So thank you, or to the student success as well. Trustees and Dr. Mays, thank you all very much. As part of our commitment to monitoring, the last question is to ask if trustees accept the report presented as it aligns with our goals and constraints, and if not, to ask if this is still the right strategy for the district. So trustees, will you please raise your right hand if you're ready to accept tonight's report? So thank you so much, trustees, for taking part in this shared commitment to students and student outcomes. We are going to now move to the consent agenda. Trustees, are there any consent items anyone would like to pull for a separate vote? And thank you all very much. And if not, Secretary Singh, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes, I move we approve items 9.1 through 9.12, 10.1 through 10.7, 11.1 through 11.3, 12.1, 13.1, and 13.2, and 14.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
So trustees, is there any discussion on any of these consent items? Having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Ashe to approve consent agenda items 9.1 through 9.12, 10.1 through 10.7, 11.1 through 11.3, 12.1, 3.1, I'm sorry, 12.1, 13.1, 13.2, and 14.1. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. And the motion passes by all those on the dais. And we have no items that were pulled from the agenda, so I'll move to the abstention items for separate vote. Trustee Singh, do we have a motion to approve item 15.1?
Yes, I move we approve item 15.1, approval of an interlocal agreement between the University of Texas at Austin and Austin ISD for district access to national internet networks.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustees, is there any discussion on these items? Having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Ashe to approve item 15.1, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those, what, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those against, all those abstaining. So the motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and showing Trustee Foster abstaining. Trustee Singh, do we have a motion to approve agenda item 15.2?
Yes. I move we approve item 15.2, approval of agreement between the City of Austin and the Austin Independent School District regarding development and shared use of jointly owned facilities, ground improvements, and open spaces.
Is there a second?
Second.
Trustees, is there any discussion on this item? Having a motion by Secretary Singh and a second by Trustee Ashe to approve item 15.2, all those in favor, please raise your right hand. All those opposed, all those abstaining, and the motion passes 6 in favor, 0 opposed, and showing Trustee Wagner abstaining. We will now recess the open meeting at 6:55 p.m. and move to executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Sections 551.074, 551.072, 551.073, 551.087, 551.076, and 551.071. For our viewers at home, this concludes our live broadcast. When we are finished with the executive session, we will briefly return to open session to formally adjourn the meeting. The adjournment will be recorded and be included in all replays of tonight's meeting. Thank you for joining us and have a good evening.